Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you may be. Yes, we got music. But that's not because we wanted music, but we'll come back to that. Any rate, welcome to the Groovy Podcast, episode 23. We are podcasting live from the DevNexus conference in Atlanta, Georgia.
Which is most awesome, I have to say.
Which is most awesome, yes. I'm Ken Cousin, and this is...
And I'm Baruch.
Sadagurski. He never wants to say his last name. Sometimes I wonder if he knows it. Yes.
Now I know it.
Yeah. And see, this is supposed to be dramatic that we've got the same, we're on the same
dramatic.
screen and everything.
It is.
But we have music coming in from the live music at the evening presentation, and judge that by however you like. And periodically people will wander in and we'll just...
And they will have to wave. You should wave.
Just wave. Guy? You're on a podcast. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. Go figure, whatever. But since it's so unlikely for us to be in the same room at the same time, we thought we would do a live podcast from here. How are you doing,
so
bro?
Welcome. I'm great. DevNexus is one of my favorite shows.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, from all the year long. And for many reasons. I think that's the second biggest Java show after Java 1.
Really?
Great speakers. But I think that the most important thing for me at DevNexus is that it is a first-class show organized by 4 guys from Atlanta Java user group.
Right.
And the organization, the scale, it's unbelievable. It feels better than Oracle.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've known Pratik Patel for many years. He's a member of the No Fluff Just Stuff conference tour, which reminds me, we should be saying this every time, that we thank very much the No Fluff Just Stuff conference tour for hosting the video files and everything from the Groovy Podcast. They, if you go to nofluffjuststuff.com/Groovy Podcast, then they have links to both listen to it and watch the YouTube video, whatever you like.
And that's like a great site with very throughput design, pixel perfect design and everything.
Pixel perfect
design. Yeah, I know front end terms.
Well, I know I didn't do it, so yeah. I mean, but Ben, who does the regular site there, also handled that. And that was very grateful.
They're
But
great.
yes, Pratik is a member of the tour, and what is it, Vincent?
Vince.
What's his last name?
Vincent.
Not D'Onofrio, that's an actor.
We have another laptop to
at any rate,
stuff.
These guys are active in the Atlanta Java Users Group, and the Java Users Group is a co-sponsor, but they have many sponsors. They've got a wide range of companies. JFrog is one. Yeah, we're an exhibitor as well, right?
Yes, that's sponsors and exhibitors.
Right.
Vincent Myers,
right. And there's several others, and this conference is a 2-day, even though they listed as 3-day, the first day is a tutorial workshop type day. Last year I did an Android one. This year I know there was one on microservices. There's a whole range of them. But then even though it's a Java conference, they do have a couple of tracks on alternative languages. And there were a couple people I saw today doing Scala talks.
Yes.
And then we're the Groovy track.
He's the Groovy track.
Yeah. Well, what did you do Groovy-wise?
So we did our very entertaining Spring configurations face-off battle talk when I represented the Groovy configuration style of Spring 4.
Which, by the way, that came from Grails.
Yes, right? It was completely stolen from Grails.
It was the actual class was called Bean Builder. I remember using it back in the day.
Exactly.
And now it was added. Was it right in 4.0 or what is it later than that?
It's 4.0, but it was pretty basic in 4.0.
Yeah.
They keep improving it, and it feels better and better. They have some documentation on it now, and it will be a very good alternative for XML in further versions. And actually, it's when we do this talk, the votes they spread between a little bit for XML, more for Java, and about the same for Groovy. And although, think about it, it's a brand new, there is almost no documentation, there is no code completion in IntelliJ, and still it wins because it has all the benefits of being declarative configuration like XML, but it's a proper programming language when you can do neat stuff with, if cases, switches, and all the programming concepts. So Pivotal will give it some love. It will kick XML out of the door.
But you're using names and types and properties and everything. I remember using it, and in fact, I did when I did Spring and Groovy like that. I did the Java config file in Groovy with the app configuration and the app bean, and everything works fine there. But the Spring and Groovy, they've been friends for years, so that's not a problem.
Up until recently.
Yeah, well, that's Pivotal. That's different. I'm trying to draw a distinction. They're here, by the way.
There is a very significant distinction because the people from the Spring framework that I talk about still love Groovy, cannot justify the.
But they're here. Have you said anything to them?
Yes, I came. Every time I come to them and I say, okay, I am low on my Groovy stickers. Oh, wait a second, you bastards, and then I go away.
See, I'm always tempted, but I'm way too much of a coward.
No, you're you're American polite guy. You think that people are nice.
American and polite; those words don't normally go together.
They always go together, and it's just a matter of politeness. And you're too polite.
Yeah, right. So, at any rate, you did the Groovy or the Spring configuration battle.
The Groovy part of it,
and you're also doing the classic.
Yes, the show time for the Groovy Puzzlers, the epic Groovy Puzzlers, is tomorrow. We are very excited. It will be one of the last plays of the season 2. Mm-hmm. We're starting to get ready for season 3.
Yeah,
and that will be a great occasion to ask for the whole half dozen of our listeners to send. Did I mention
our listen? No, your Groovy Puzzlers have way more listeners.
No, I mean the Groovy Podcast.
Oh, the podcast listeners? Yeah, both of them. What do you want them to do?
Yeah, so I need them to send puzzlers for the 3rd season.
Do you ever collect those and put them in a blog somewhere, or the actual ones you've already used? Do they ever show up anywhere? Or do you have to go to the presentation, or you don't know?
Yeah, so that's a good idea.
We should think about
to make something like a lean publishing, but we were going to talk about it today.
Right.
We might do a Groovy Puzzlers book. But what's most urgent for great conferences that come soon enough in a couple of months, we need content for the 3rd season.
The new Groovy Puzzlers.
So yes, please send it to us, puzzlers@jfrog.com or at Groovy Puzzlers on Twitter.
Right. At Groovy Puzzlers, good Twitter account. I also, the at Apache Groovy Twitter account I really like. And the latest one I really like is the one that has the Gradle tips and tricks.
Yes.
What's that one called? Nuts. I have that one.
We spoke about it last.
We did talk about it. So it's in the show notes in the last one. If we think of it, great. But Gradle tips and tricks is a good one as well. So I did my talk on the Gradle plugin for Android. So we talked about Gradle extensively there. And then I did my normal Groovy talk. This time it's called Seriously Use Groovy Now.
Which is a very good name, a very good talk, and a very good message. I like it.
But at any rate, we did that. I did that today. And then tomorrow I'm doing a Spock talk, and I'm also doing a Grails talk. And I'm going to use 3.1.1, which there's our segue, right? Grails 3.1.1 was released. I got the wrong tag in there. Oh, no, there it is. Yeah, Grails 3.1.1 was released last week, I think. Right. And it had an interesting feature. Did you notice there was a blog post by Graham Roche talking about the multi-project build capability in Grails. And it's interesting because normally in Gradle you have multi-project builds.
Yes.
But the way it works is when you say one project is dependent on a sub-project or one sub-project is dependent on another, then Gradle, when it runs, turns that sub-project into a jar and adds it to the class path.
That's a modular dependency.
Yeah, modular dependency, exactly. And that's normally fine. The problem is that, of course, if you're not writing a Grails plugin, or if you want to write something that's like a Grails plugin, it's a multi-project build, then you have things that are not just classes. You also have resources, you have maybe view layer, all kinds of stuff. And, Android has the same problem. That's why they have an Android library as opposed to just a Java library, because you have all these other things you have to package in. Well, Graham and his cohorts went through, and in Grails 3.1.1, now you can put in your build file that this module is an exploded form, right? Explode equals true. And when you deploy it, it still will turn into a jar, which is what you want. But in development mode, you can actually make changes to these resources and refresh, and it'll all behave.
So that will be a projectile dependency and not a modular dependency.
It won't as opposed to a projectile dependent. Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it won't be a binary dependency. It will be a source dependency.
And you don't have to.
And it's much nicer to work with because it's exploded. You can edit. You see the changes immediately. You don't need to rebuild to get a new dependency.
With the live reloading and everything, absolutely. So that could be very helpful. We'll see how that plays out. He pointed out eventually that capability is going to merge into Grails itself. But in the meantime, we just have this nice capability added in 3.1.1.
Right.
Speaking of continuous, there's our organizer.
Yeah,
come on
speaking
in, man.
about organizer,
what are we doing? Show you. This is the Groovy Podcast, episode 23.
And you are live.
Pratik Patel, the inimitable Pratik Patel,
the infamous,
the organizer of all these beauty.
Yes, or one of the organizers, also a major player in the Atlanta Java users group, and actually a decent guy too. I mean, you wouldn't think to look at him, but he's actually okay. You know.
Yeah, I take a shower every day, so it's all good.
Every day. Wow, that's okay. Well, I appreciate that. I mean,
that's more than our Russian podcasters, guys.
Did you want to say anything nice about DevNexus? We already talked about it.
Yeah, so DevNexus is awesome. Biggest show ever. Next year will be even better.
You have amazing to grow here.
How many people did we have this year?
We had over 1,800 this year.
1,800.
And that's amazing.
Right, we do it right. We feed everybody. Premium show at community conference pricing. So come down.
Awesome.
Now,
I have a question. If you take the whole 3 buildings of the World Congress Center, what is the limit for being like sold out?
So what I said is if Ken Cousin has to do a keynote again, we're going to have to book out Phillips Arena, which we can hold a maximum of about 21,000 people.
Okay, we can live with that.
We can probably do with 21,000
and
people.
by then they'll probably open the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yes,
so we can
and then we could scale up to 120,000 3 years from now.
I invited you in. I think it's time to move on, frankly. Okay, but good that you dropped by. Thank you. And I'd say he was invited because, hey, you don't know any different. So, thank you for coming by. And he had the nice little speaker vest on and everything. Okay, so back to the so-called news. Other than Grails 3.1.1 being released, another release was from Gradle.
Yes.
Gradle, I keep wanting to call them Gradleware. I'm going to have a tough time breaking that. But Gradle Incorporated is on a roughly 6 to 8 week release schedule.
Yeah.
And the latest version, most of these changes have been under the hood trying to improve the performance, especially with the configuration part, because that's a hard problem. It's just a hard problem to start that up. I mean, you have the Gradle daemon, but that's just getting the JVM started. Getting the configuration working is nice.
Yes.
So now one of the things about Gradle's 2.11 that was in the release notes is they mentioned that they did some improvements to the continuous builds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure out why -- continuous is equivalent to -t of all things, right? But I use that when I write materials. I have a Gradle build for my ASCII Doctor materials so that it watches the repo, and every time I save a file, it automatically updates. Very convenient. By the way, speaking of continuous, Gradle has a flag that a lot of people forget exists. It's called -- continue. Just continue the one word.
Yes.
And I was downloading some Android samples from a library I had to work with, or a client I'm going to see in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like 40 or 50 projects, all in this one GitHub repo.
Yes.
And it was all a giant multi-project build. And I wanted to run the build, and virtually every project was going to fail the lint checks step. Now, the thing about the lint checks is that nothing else is dependent on that. And it's just documentation. It's just evidence, not a huge deal. So when it failed the first time, I went, okay, let's try this again. And I went Gradle build -- continue. And now, even though 40 of the 50 projects failed the lint test, it still kept running all the way through.
And you only got the lint
and I got them at the end, and I could always take a look at nothing else depended on that. So it was really nice.
Yeah. So generally the
what else did you see?
Yeah, so 2.11 is just another step towards 3.
Right.
With all the new software module.
I have no idea when 3's coming. They keep implying that it's real soon now.
Well, they rewrite the entire Gradle under the hood. Yeah. It's and trying to be stable when they do
3's going to mess me up because my Gradle recipes for Android book.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to redo everything.
So basically, we will still learn Gradle from 0 in 3 and 3.
Okay. Now, what else do we have? Oh, speaking of things that are about ready to be released.
Yes, all right.
Dan Developer. Dan
did a present
Dan
for
Woods.
Luke Daly birthday,
right?
Claiming that the draft of the book
of Learning Backpack, the O'Reilly book, Learning
complete.
Backpack. And he even tweeted about receiving a lot of good information from the tech reviewers. In other words,
I would say they send him a mail. It's all crap. Throw it all away.
He has continued his pattern of making all these things public, which means that he is earning abuse whenever he misses a deadline. Now, by the way, speaking of abuse, did you notice we took abuse in the Grail's diary before this one?
Yes.
Because we gave Dan a hard time because just on general principles, you're supposed to give Dan a hard time. And he pointed out the author of the Grail's diary writes in there, oh, by the way, it took us a long time to get our Grail's podcast going again.
Yeah,
and only because that was completely correct and justified. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, again,
but then we give Dan a hard time, disregarding of his
that's one of the features of being in the Groovy ecosystem. Exactly. I mean, it's an advantage, It's not a bug, it's a feature.
But for us, we only take it when we deserve it. That's the big difference.
Now I got to say that the unfortunate part is that I've read like the first 6 chapters of that book.
Oh
yeah, because I got it in early access, and
my God,
it's outstanding. It's really
Seriously?
good. It's the Brat Pack book that the framework desperately needs. It explains everything. It makes a lot of sense.
I don't want to hear that anymore.
I know. It goes against the grain, but he's done a phenomenal job.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Hear
Everybody's going to have to actually buy it.
No, but hear yourself.
Yeah,
phenomenal
I might have
job
to buy 2
in a
copies.
sentence, in the same sentence as Dan
Woods. Yeah.
Oh my God!
If we're going to give him a hard time, we got to acknowledge when he does something.
No,
good,
Dan, we'll love you.
And he's one of the guys actually who's probably going to listen to this.
Yeah,
he's
one of the 6 guys that are going to listen.
Okay, now speaking of books, then there's a new book that I had not heard anything about.
That's interesting. Yes.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that one?
Well, yeah, that's a lean, one of the lean pub books, which basically means the guy writes the book and then this platform, the cloud platform, makes a book out of it,
right?
And they try to sell it.
And he's got a min price, and of course you can move it to whatever you feel is
appropriate. And this book called Learning Groovy,
right?
There is a sample chapter that looks a little bit like Groovy in Action introduction and chapter. What is Groovy? What's the relationship to Java? Why you should learn Groovy?
And it's the author's name?
Adam L. Davis.
Yes.
And from what I understood for looking at his blog post is that it's kind of a documentation of a Groovy learner experience. So Adam started to learn Groovy back in, I think, 2006, and wrote this as he learned. So that's an interesting book, and it definitely has other perspective than other classical Groovy books, like Making Java Groovy, like Groovy in Action Second Edition, etc. So it might be interesting to read, especially when you can name the price. And
so it's certainly worth taking a look.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we have on the notes here? We have our show notes, and we talked about the Gradle part. And we talked about, you were just there.
No, it was the old one.
There we go. We talked about DevNexus. Oh, just as an aside, I hate to do the shameless self-promotion, but I'm going to do one of those O'Reilly talks.
Yes,
where
do that shameless promotion because it's good.
I called it Seriously Use Groovy Now again. And it's going to be just mostly introductory, but with some interesting Groovy features and larger applications.
So I have to say that the message, Seriously Use Groove Now, it's true on so many levels.
Okay.
Right, because the future of Groovy was unclear a couple of months ago, because they're all new cool languages. Kotlin release, should we mention? No, we shouldn't.
Well, Kotlin release 1.0. No
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a lot of going on with Groovy and other languages, and this message of seriously use Groovy now, it is important message to
It's
deliver.
also getting a bit of an attitude, so I should, back.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Attitude is good.
But at any rate, it's going to be an O'Reilly webcast. It's going to be on March 29th. This is a Tuesday.
Awesome.
They listed as 10 a.m. Pacific, so that's 11, 12, 1 in the East, and then much later in Europe. But it's free, and anybody can get in on it, and of course, they'll probably record it as well.
Now you remind me that I have an O'Reilly webcast scheduled as well.
You do?
For the Spring configuration styles comparison.
You do?
And I will do the Groovy part.
We'll talk about it and I'll Google it.
I have no idea where it is, but it's somewhere on the O'Reilly site, on the webcasts.
Yeah?
Yes.
So I'll have to look for your name here.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just, all right, I guess we'll have to find it later.
Yeah.
And we'll have to find, those are the old ones. These are some upcoming ones and they don't have, but there's pages of this.
Here you go.
Oh, you found it? Spring Framework, the Ultimate Configuration Battle on March 11th.
March 8th.
March 8th?
Yeah.
You're ahead of me. So you're coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there will be some groovy content.
It's a good thing you said something, right? Otherwise, how would we know? You know?
How would I know? Yeah. If you didn't mention yours.
Well, you're going to have to get ready now. So anyway, we'll have to add that to the show.
No, but we had this talk like today, so.
Okay. Anything else? We're getting a little up in time here. How are we doing? What else do we have?
I think that we are pretty good. We spoke about the Nexus. We spoke about
and all the releases, right? Rat Pack, by the way. Wait a minute. Rat Pack had a couple of RC release candidates.
Release candidates
for what is it? 1.2, I believe. Yeah, if you mouse over it, I think I got it in there. It's 1.2.0 release candidate 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
So hopefully 1.2 final will be out soon, and then we'll talk about that when that comes out. Maybe we can get, I don't know, somebody like Dan Woods maybe to drop by and talk about, or Luke. Of course, Luke's in Australia now, or is he in England?
I think he's in Australia.
He might be back in Australia, yeah. So we'll see. Maybe Dan will be.
There are a bunch of good guys on their team, and them.
Dan wants attention anyway. So,
maybe
we'll probably get him.
Yeah, we'll see how much he pays.
Okay, anything else on your mind?
No,
or we're good?
We're good.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Thank you for No Fluff Just Stuff for providing a homepage so that we can link to this and make it play. If you have any questions or comments, there's a Twitter feed at Groovy Podcast. Feel free to comment, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks.
We will. Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much and take care. Bye-bye.